Amanda Blake is remembered as one of television's most iconic figures, best known for her role as Miss Kitty Russell on Gunsmoke. Yet her life was far more complex than the warm, courageous woman she played on screen. Behind the bright lights and the fame, Blake endured deep personal losses, public scrutiny, and the long, quiet shadow of AIDS at a time when the disease was shrouded in stigma and silence. Her later years were marked by activism, personal tragedy, and a fierce commitment to causes she believed in. In her own words, Blake described a Hollywood world where many suffered in secret, especially gay actors who feared exposure and rejection. The story of Amanda Blake is not just about a beloved actress. It is a story about courage, secrecy, compassion, and the heartbreaking human cost of a disease that stole many lives before the world was ready to speak its name. Early years. From Buffalo to Hollywood dreams, Amanda Blake was born Beverly Louise Neal on February 20th, 1929, in Buffalo, New York. Her family later moved to Claremont, California, where Blake grew up and first discovered her love of acting. Even as a young girl, she showed an affinity for the stage, performing in school plays and demonstrating a natural confidence in front of audiences. After graduating high school, she briefly attended Pomona College but soon left to pursue acting full-time. Before her career took off, Blake worked as a telephone operator, a job she later said taught her how to interact with people and built her self-assurance. Her early years were shaped by ambition and determination, qualities that would later help her break into Hollywood at a time when female actors often faced limited opportunities and intense scrutiny. The rise of a star, early film roles, and a name change. Blake's early film career began in the early 1950s, with roles in films such as Stars in My Crown, 1950, Smuggler's Gold, 1951, and Miss Robin Crusoe, 1954. Her classic beauty, husky voice, and magnetic presence quickly made her a standout in Hollywood's crowded landscape. Her career path changed forever when she was cast as Miss Kitty Russell in the television western Gunsmoke, which debuted in 1955. The show would become one of America's longest-running series, airing for 20 seasons. Blake appeared in 19 of those seasons, becoming one of the most enduring female figures in television history. Her role was groundbreaking because Miss Kitty was not a passive female character. She was a strong, independent business owner who held her own in a male-dominated world. Miss Kitty: strength, compassion, and cultural impact. Miss Kitty Russell was a saloon owner, love interest, and moral center in the town of Dodge City. At a time when women on television were often relegated to domestic roles, Blake's portrayal stood out for its independence, intelligence, and emotional depth. She gave Kitty a strong sense of self, a clear moral compass, and a fierce loyalty to those she cared about. The character was both tough and tender, a woman who could command a room and also show compassion to the town's misfits and wounded souls. Blake's performance helped redefine the role of women in television westerns, and her chemistry with co-star James Arness, Marshall Matt Dillon, became one of the most beloved relationships in TV history. Fans admired her for her strength and authenticity, and she became a role model for generations of women. Life behind the scenes, family, marriages, and personal struggle. Amanda Blake's personal life was as complex as any character she played. She entered into 5 marriages over the course of her life. Her first marriage to Jack Shea lasted only a year, 1952 to 1953. She later married Don Whitman in 1954, and the couple divorced 2 years later in 1956, as Blake's career on Gunsmoke began to rise. During this period, the set of Gunsmoke became more than a workplace. It became her home. Blake often returned to the saloon set even on days she was not filming, developing deep bonds with co-stars like James Arness, Milburn Stone, and Dennis Weaver. The show offered her stability and community at a time when her personal life was turbulent. The emotional attachment she formed to the show and its cast would remain a defining feature of her life long after the series ended. A second life. Animal advocacy and humanitarian work. While acting brought Blake fame, her true passion was animal welfare. After retiring from Gunsmoke, she became deeply involved in animal rights causes. She joined the board of the Performing Animal Welfare Society, PAWS, and helped fund one of the first African wildlife refuges in the United States. Blake was particularly concerned about big cats in captivity and worked tirelessly to improve conditions for animals held in entertainment and zoos. She rescued animals, traveled to speak on conservation issues, and pushed for legislative reform. Her activism earned her numerous awards, including the American Humane Association's Courage Award and recognition from the National Wildlife Federation. Her commitment to animals became a defining part of her legacy, one that continues to inspire animal advocates today. A Tragic Love. Mark Spaeth and the AIDS Crisis. In 1984, Amanda Blake married Mark Spaeth, a well-known public figure in Austin, Texas. Their marriage was short-lived. Less than a year later, Spaeth died from complications related to AIDS. At a time when the disease was heavily stigmatized, the public reaction was one of shock and confusion. Blake faced grief under intense scrutiny, and the loss became a turning point in her life. It also drew her into the larger conversation about AIDS, an epidemic that was ravaging communities while remaining largely hidden behind silence and shame. Although she never spoke publicly in detail about the nature of her marriage or Spaeth's illness, Blake's friends later noted how deeply the loss affected her. Her experience with the tragedy made her a quiet but determined advocate for awareness, compassion, and public health. The 6 Men. A list of secret lives and silent deaths. In her later years, Blake spoke openly about the AIDS epidemic's toll on her circle of Hollywood acquaintances. In a rare conversation, she reportedly named 6 gay actors she knew who died of AIDS-related complications, often in secrecy and without public acknowledgement. These men included Rock Hudson, Liberace, Steven Stucker, Paul Shenar, Timothy Patrick Murphy, and Leonard Frey. Blake's account reflects the culture of fear that surrounded AIDS in the 1980s. Many actors feared that being publicly linked to the disease would end their careers, force them into hiding, or subject them to public hatred. Blake's list was not merely a roster of names. It was a tribute to a generation of artists who were forced to live and die in secrecy. Her remembrance of them highlights how AIDS did not just destroy lives, it destroyed the possibility of truth and openness. The names behind the tragedy. 6 lives lost. Too soon. Rock Hudson was the most famous of the 6, a Hollywood heartthrob whose AIDS diagnosis became public only shortly before his death in 1985. Liberace, the flamboyant pianist, died in 1987, and the official cause was initially listed as cardiac arrest. Only later was it confirmed he died from AIDS complications. Steven Stucker, known for his role in Airplane, was one of the few actors to publicly disclose his diagnosis, yet he died in 1986 at just 38. Paul Shenar, best known for Scarface, died in 1989 after years of private illness. Timothy Patrick Murphy, a rising soap opera star, died in 1988 at age 29. Leonard Frey, acclaimed for Fiddler on the Roof and The Boys in the Band, died in 1988. Blake remembered them not only as colleagues but as friends whose deaths were shrouded in silence, a cruel product of the era's fear and discrimination. Final years and legacy, cancer, AIDS, and a life rewritten. In 1977, Blake was diagnosed with oral cancer, likely linked to years of heavy smoking. She underwent surgery and successfully recovered, later becoming an outspoken advocate for cancer awareness. Her work with the American Cancer Society culminated in the 1984 Courage Award, presented by President Ronald Reagan. However, her final years were marked by a different and more devastating illness. Amanda Blake died on August 16, 1989, at Mercy General Hospital in Sacramento. While her death was initially attributed to complications from throat cancer, her physician later revealed that she had died from AIDS-related hepatitis. The announcement shocked the public and forced a reassessment of her final years. Although the source of her infection remains unconfirmed, many believe it may have been linked to her marriage to Mark Spaeth. Regardless of the cause, Blake's death became another example of how AIDS reshaped the lives of public figures long before the world was ready to speak openly about it. Conclusion: a quiet courage that outlived her silence. Amanda Blake's life was a series of contrasts: a glamorous star who lived in quiet grief, a powerful woman who still faced public stigma, and a beloved actress who became an unlikely witness to one of America's greatest public health tragedies. She built a lasting legacy through her work on Gunsmoke, her devotion to animal welfare, and her willingness to speak, quietly but honestly, about the hidden toll of AIDS in Hollywood. Her story reminds us that the entertainment industry has long been a place where truth is often sacrificed to protect careers. Blake's later years, marked by loss and activism, reveal a deeper truth: that compassion can survive even in the darkest times. Her life, and her final act of remembrance, continue to stand as a tribute to those who suffered in silence and a warning of the cost of secrecy.